it's me again. Today is Tuesday, April 12th, 2022. Don't forget your taxes. You have 6 days to get your taxes done if you live in the United States. If you don't live in the United States, I don't know. Good luck, because that's out of my jurisdiction and I have no idea how that works. Tax laws in America are complex enough. I don't have enough brain power to do America plus other countries. So good luck. Let's talk about MMTLP today because it's been requested and we're in a holding pattern. I thought I would bring up to speed the current timeline of MMTLP. So MMTLP first began, this is also known as Metamaterial Torchlight Preferred Shares, after the merger agreement with Torchlight Metamaterials. It was determined in December that Metamaterials would do a reverse takeover with Torchlight Energy to get uplisted on the NASDAQ. Please see my MMTLP part 1, part 2, part 3. I go over this entire history. So there was this reverse takeover, and part of the agreement in that takeover was that Metamaterials gets a extra share. At the time, it was like 3.74 shares, and that Torchlight would receive like a 1-to-1 conversion with a total of 25% ownership in the company, but the oil and gas assets would be sold and we would receive a special dividend from the proceeds of that sale. And as time went on, they iterated Torchlight how they were focused on selling the assets. Let me emphasize that here. They were selling the emphasis on selling the assets. If that couldn't happen by the end of the year, they would spin out. It quickly became a compliance nightmare, and they realized, I think, that they had to spin out regardless. This is where our timeline begins, because at this part, a lot of that is erroneous because things have changed. And while it's good to know the history and the setup, again, see MMTLP parts 1 through 3 go through that whole process. 4 and 5 is a little bit different, 5 especially, but 1 through 3 is that whole process. With that being said, there is a specific timeline. So once the merger happened, Torchlight Metamaterials, right before, there was a record date and a next dividend date. Next dividend date, more or less, was, I think, around the 22nd of June or the 23rd. I can't really remember off the top of my head, with the record date being 2 days after that. And then if you held the share, you would receive your preferred share, which at the time was a private share. It was a non-tradable share. Not registered with any exchange, which would be a NASDAQ, which is why it ended up on the OTC, because it wasn't registered on an exchange, the OTC being not an exchange. I won't get into analogies, because people like to critique my analogies. I tend to think a lot in comparatives, analogies, other things with similar experiences. There's a market that can be created for anything. I like to cite secondary marketing. All your debt is usually for sale. With that being said, I was in that merger. I did receive my preferred Series A share. August 6th, Hudspeth Operating LLC is filed. And it shows up on Open Corporates. August 31st, Oilco Holdings LLC is filed. And I've done research on this. I will cite here to Drop Knowledge did find the whole NextBridge team. He was first to market in finding the NextBridge team. There are people who list Hudspeth Operating as their employer on LinkedIn. This syncs up with NextBridge. This gives rise that Hudspeth Operating is indeed NextBridge. August 31st, Oilco Holdings LLC is filed. This is a private company. The organizer and registered agent is Corporate Curations in Florida. A few months later, early October, that started trading on the OTC, which is not an exchange, but it was a market. It was like broker to broker. This was under the ticker symbol MMTLP. That's Mike Tango Lima Papa, or Metamaterials Torchlight Preferred. That started around October 7th. It was shortly after it started trading on the OTC that Fidelity suspended. Like, it got up to $3, and then Fidelity suspended the trading of MMTLP. But other brokerages like E-Trade was going. This will come back because Fidelity recently, on April the 8th, stopped trading MMTLP once again. Now we get to November. There was a press release in November that said that 4 wells needed to be completed by the end of the year to maintain lease agreement, and that they were working. Hudspeth Operating did file the permits back in September. I actually went on Uncle Smokey's show and talked about them. They did file permits in September, early October for this drilling. There was 4 new wells and 2 recompletions. The wells are much bigger than previous, as I've talked about here before. These are more set up for production and not so much for testing. December 3rd, we saw a press release which just said that they're continuing to work on drilling, and they will spin out into Oilco with a update by the end of the year. End of the year came, nothing. January 14th, Metamaterials gives another press release that says drilling was completed on December 13th, a month prior. Their new target completion for spinout is in March. I found it very interesting, and I even commented on the time in the videos, how they waited a month to give an update. Why couldn't they give the update in December, like they had said? Why did they wait, 2 extra weeks to do this? Was it Christmas? Who knows? March 5th. George tweets this. I will put it up here. George tweets how they didn't have time because this related to Meta, and we knew that the dividend was going to spin out. It's been talked about how they do have to spin out. It's been talked about how Meta has to spin out before they can sell the asset, because that can't be on Metamaterials' books. If they pump oil, they have to sell oil, and that can't be on Metamaterials' books. They're not an oil company. Also, when you start pumping oil, the value of the asset increases exponentially. And again, that would ping a lot of stuff on Meta's books, so there has to be a spin-out process. It's labeled by these steps. More or less 1 through 4 is the actual spin-out process. 5 is just the 2022 drilling plan, which is to drill 5 more wells. And step number 6 is the sale. But George said that they are executing a plan March 5th, and they will have their own dedicated presentation for the Preferred A to answer all questions. Now it's April 12th, and we haven't had that dedicated presentation yet. I'm not sure if the plan is to make people wait or not. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes here, but on March 31st, we did get an official PR update. It announced the Oilco members. It talked about, the 2021 drilling budget and how they spent $14.2 million. It introduced the Hudspeth Operating or Oilco team, which, of course, we found on the NextBridge website. April 8th, Fidelity stops trading MMTLP again. I've heard different things. One person talked with Fidelity and they cited 152C-11. Another one cited the fact that the par value and coupon value of the preferred share was like 0 or 0.001 cents, which is how it was when it was set up. Me and stock Twitch user GG76 actually went through all this paperwork and looked at it a couple months ago. Back in January, January, we did that, which is awesome. Me and GG76, shout out to them. They, like I said, if you have any questions about filings, they're like the person to ask, because they worked in investor relations, actually. And we've talked about many things. So they're very helpful and knowledgeable. Going forward, so today's the 12th. Going forward, we're going to see a spin out into Oilco. Currently, as far as I know, we're on step 1 of the audit. Hopefully, we'll get something soon on step 1, if not step 2 or step 3. But according to the last press release 2 weeks ago, there's the audit. I put audit in quotation marks because the timeline doesn't really sync up, and I've been asked about this. The timeline doesn't really sync up with, like, the whole December they announced a spinoff, and to do the spinoff, you have to do an audit. The audit would have been done by then, sometime in then. So I'm thinking, I've told people this might be a type of compliancy audit. But regardless, MMTLP has to go into Oilco before anything can happen. So the spin out is part of the sale process. It has to spin out. And going by previous filings with Torchlight, that their goal was to sell the asset. Stating in September, the Q3 of Meta, they stated, we talked about it. The September Q3 report said that they, want to sell the asset. That's their goal. I see the spin out process as part of it. It has to get off Meta's books to sell. Now, let's talk about the spin out into Oilco, because last week there was quite a bit of a family feud. There's 2 schools of thought on this. One of the schools of thought was that the ex-dividend date record date already happened back in June. There was an ex date and a dividend date in June for the original Torchlight to become the preferred Series A share. So I will cite B West here. Kudos to B West. B West in this conversation states that there will be a new record date, ex-dividend date going forward, because that's the system. There's going to be a new one. I agree with B West here with this system and this conversation. It makes sense that there has to be a new ex-dividend date given, because that's how the shares will be consolidated, and you'll say, we will know who owes who and who owes what. It doesn't make sense if you went by the original ex-dividend date 9 months ago. Actually, at this point, almost 10 months ago, because that means you could have sold, you held on, and then you sold your Torchlight share right before the merger, right before those shares came together. You sold yours, you got the dividend, you got your preferred Series A share. Then you could sell MMTLP, which the letter from Mark says you're selling your rights. I'll cite Ken. We believe that this is you're selling your rights. Of course, certain people like to also cite Ken saying the we believe is a liability statement. And they're within the school of thought that there was one ex-dividend date, record date. I'm with the school of thought of B West that there will be a new one because it makes sense. And how can you reconcile? Think of QuickBooks. How can you reconcile the shares, again, with who owes what, given something that long ago? Find me another case that has happened. Again, that's how my brain works, experience. I cite here with somebody who is arguing with me about that. Either one of us will be right or both of us will be wrong. So either the dividend date was back in June, or it has to be announced again, or something else completely different. You manage your money how you need to. I like the saying, your money, your choice. Ultimately, it's your money, your choice. What is MMTLP? Okay, MMTLP is a special dividend. Special dividend means like a one-time thing. It's not going to be recurring. It's going to be a one-time payment. of shares in a new company, shares in a buying company, or cash. That's what makes it special. And this particular dividend play has to do with a very large untapped oil play in West Texas. It's east of El Paso. It's called the Oro Grande. It's in Hudspeth County. But it's right on the, basically in the Hudspeth, El Paso County border. And a lot of people will say, well, why hasn't this, already, if there's so much oil there, why hasn't this already been producing, or why hasn't a lot of money been paid for this? There's been a couple of factors. One, there was the OPEC agreement in 2014. And I'll cite this because before 2014, Torchlight was a production company, a very small production company, and they actually had dividends in which they paid out. 2014 OPEC agreement comes, and that gets the Torchlight, as we knew it then, went bye-bye, and it became an oil exploration company focusing on an asset they more or less had, the Oro Grande. This is also when they bring Greg McCabe on board. They sold their producing properties, and they focused just on exploration of new properties and acquisitions until the market came back. The market was coming back, and then COVID hit. So it'd been a few years, gas was cheap, and then COVID hit and gas went cheap again. And this is when Torchlight decided to merge with Meta. Recap. So this is a very big oil play. I will also cite that technology then in 2014 was not as good as it is today. And in fact, the USGS wound up redoing a lot of their oil and gas surveys in 2016, as I've talked about, because technology has actually gotten significantly better. As a result of, well logs getting better, a lot of seismic, petrophysical data getting better, drilling technology has gotten better. This play has become more valuable, and the market is now right for somebody to come in for it. The market has come back for oil and gas, and technology has improved. Drilling technology has really improved quite a bit, because in 2012 or 2014, actually, the people who are on NextBridge now did at the time one of the longest lateral, that's horizontal, drill. That was in the Utica Shale in Ohio. And they did like a 12,000 and change horizontal lateral drill. And today, you will often see 8,000 to 10,000 lateral drills in the Eagle Ford Shale of Texas. So technology, like I said, has gone, ooh, this is new. Now, it's kind of standard. In that 8-year period, technology for drilling has really improved. As a result, what was previously not feasible now is. And that is why I think going forward, we're going to see a big demand for this. My conviction on the dividend still remains high at 29 to 46. But if it's over 46, I will not complain. When, it's all said and done, and when the asset gets sold either for cash or stock in a buying company. I will also cite that since 2014 happened, we've become a lot more independent on our own oil. Before 2014, we were more international. Since then, like things with Venezuela, we've become much more independent on our own oil supply. And this is solidified with the fact of overseas tension with different countries. And there's now a demand for, natural gas liquids in Europe. That really puts a lot of pressure on America. And America's kind of like, whew, good thing we developed our own, we've been becoming more independent as time has, gone on. And, sentiment in Texas is still very, very high on producing oil. My friend who owns property in the Eagle Ford Shale that Marathon leases out from him, he's all gung-ho. Marathon's like, woo boy, on his property. He's like, woo boy. So, like I said, I have my different routes of engaging what the current sentiment is in the industry. And this just, I'm just further sharing with you my conviction. Much of what I do is speculation, yes. You are following me along on my own journey. This is one bird's thoughts and opinions. I try to back up what I can with history, documents, like a hypothesis, right? You have a hypothesis or back up with findings, data sets. Okay, guys, that's it for today. That's what MMTLP and this whole dividend thing is. That's what it's currently called right now, MMTLP, so that's what I call it. That's the history right now, a brief history. I will see you soon. Goodbye.